as we are getting close to Christmas, we have our gift for today. We're talking about some extra help for your endeavors in Mythic Plus. No matter the level, you might be content getting to do some plus 20s, you might be going in and do some plus 22s or plus 23s, maybe you want to go even higher in 25s and 26s, but this tool right here will still be able to help you no matter the level. The last time we checked that something helpful for Mythic Plus was the Healer Focus Assist to show up in the party frames, show up dangerous mechanics in the party frames of your group, which is not just good for healers, it's also good for anyone that can help with these type of mechanics. For today, instead, we're looking at the spell CDs on nameplates, what you see right over here. Now, this is a quite helpful tool, especially for trash mobs. Because when it comes to bosses, we already have the help of something like Bigwigs or something like DBM, something that shows the bars of the mechanics. So you can already choose what you want to see, what you don't want to see, showing up as bars, etc, etc. But there is something DBM doesn't do nearly as well, which is, of course, the trash mobs. It's the mechanics of many of the trash you have to go through, which is quite an important part of Mythic Plus. So, what you can help with when it comes to trash mobs is something like having the dangerous spell, dangerous abilities coming from the trash mobs show up in their nameplates, next to, on top, below, to the left of their nameplates. You can choose, of course, multiple settings like the limit of how many you want to show up, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you want. You can, of course, choose the scale, how big you want them to be, as well as, of course, the positioning. You can choose if you want them to the left or to the right or at the bottom or below or above the anchor, the plates of your nameplates add-on. If you're using a nameplate add-on, or even if you're not using a nameplate add-on, this is going to automatically anchor to your nameplates. Now, what is relevant about this add-on is, of course, that some mechanics are going to be quite dangerous that you do want to notice, and others, though, are kind of like filler. For example, you might be looking at one of the dungeons like Throne of the Tides, for example, and some mechanics in here are very dangerous. Like, for example, you would be happy to know, for example, when is the Crushing Depths of the Sentinel going to come off cooldown and is going to be cast. But at the same time, do you actually care about Shellbreaker, the tank mechanic? At the same time, when it comes to the Oracle, you kind of want to see the Hex, because it's quite dangerous to have a player hexed, but Healing Wave and Water Bolt are not nearly as relevant as Hex, for example. Same goes for the Ravager in the middle, the big one that does the AoE, the spread fire AoE, compared to the Volatile Bolt, which is just the circle on the ground. Circle on the ground is very easy to dodge and very simple, whereas this one you might want to know, you might want to be aware when it's coming. So if you want to micromanage each ability further, all you have to do is pick the dungeon inside the Weakaura, like in this case, Throne of the Tides, and then you go in Custom Options, where you get to see every single one of the abilities that this Weakaura will show next to the nameplates. So, for example, as mentioned, Shellbreaker. I don't really care about seeing Shellbreaker. This is a tank problem. I'm not gonna be healing a tank anyway, so let's get rid of Shellbreaker. I don't want to see the cooldown of it. However, I do want to see the cooldown of Crushing Depths, for example. So we can hold on Crushing Depths. Some of these are going to be automatically selected to show up depending on your role. If you're a tank, if you're a non-tank, you can also do this and leave them up for your tank spec, for example. Same goes, to be fair, if you're a DPS. For example, if you're a DPS, maybe you don't care about certain healing-centric mechanics, so you want to ignore them. Or maybe if you're a pathetic spec without an interrupt, you might not even care about noticing certain abilities being cast, because even if you notice them, you can't actually interrupt them yourself. That could also be a reason. The difference between these two, for example, we want to keep Acid Barrage because you want to be sure to be at, above 70 or so % HP to survive it. But Volatile Bolt, we can just dodge it when it's being cast. So I don't need to see Volatile Bolt. Nobody should be worrying too much about this mechanic, for example, and you can remove it. So you will lessen the clutter on the nameplate. Now on the nameplate of this mob, you will only see the actually dangerous acid barrage countdown. So you get to see when it's about to be cast. As an example, here is your Throw the Tides key. Here is the first mob when we get to the Ravager, and these are the two icons next to the nameplate. We don't really need to see the other one. We should just be caring about this AoE right here and not really about the big circle that is gonna be cast, because this is the dangerous one. This, especially in a fortified key, is what's gonna hurt a lot. Meanwhile, the other one, the big circle, it's like, okay, there's a circle, I move. It's not, I don't need to see the cooldown of this mechanic. So that's why you might be wanting to do some min-maxing on each and every one of the abilities that you don't really need to be seeing, so that you get to have a less cluttered set of nameplates. Because of course, in certain pools, in certain situations, you might have a very cluttered set of nameplates showing up all over the place, right? Before this boss, for example, where we only care about his stomp mechanic, of course, so that's what we want to look at. But before this boss, you have to do a bit of a crowded situation when it comes to nameplates. Luckily, in this entire thing, there is only one mechanic you care about, so it's only one icon you will be seeing next to the big Felguards, but there are plenty of other pools in other dungeons where you might be having multiple of these nameplates with multiple icons, and it gets pretty confusing to trying to keep track of every single one of them. So yes, this is helpful. It gets you to time certain dangerous trash mobs mechanic, which something like Bigwigs, for example, or DBM wouldn't, because right now, Bigwigs is not telling me anything about their casts, whereas this Weakaura does help dealing with this mechanic. But of course, you can also min-max it yourself to make it just a bit less cluttered with plenty of mechanics that you might not really care about. As I said, the rest is up to you, how you want to show the icons. In this example, I am showing them outside of the health bar of the enemies rather than inside, because of course there is always the question of how long do you want to make the nameplate be. Because if you make these outside, then the nameplate gets even longer. So maybe when you start some long pulls, let's go on the initial ones. When you get to do these type of pulls, it starts to get kind of crowded. So maybe you want to shorten the health bar and make them show up inside or outside. Maybe you want to show them up on top or below, whichever is your preference with these mechanics, but it does help. It's very helpful when you are in a high key with these guys doing the charge, knowing exactly when the charge is coming. You want to know if you're a healer to top yourself up, or you want to know to start running sideways, so you're going to be dodging the charge, or maybe you want to know because you're a druid, and as a druid you have Typhoon, and you can literally just push the guy back as he's charging in your direction. So you want to know when this is approaching the cast time. Whereas, for example, this guy's Dancing Thorns is useless. This is just a meme ability. So once you realize that's a meme ability, you go back, you go inside the Choking Vines mechanic thing, and you get rid of it because it's really just irrelevant. That's what you're going to be able to get with this Weakaura, which is very helpful when it comes to trash mobs. As I said, it's you already have a good amount of help when it comes to bosses when you go through the Bigwigs or DBM, your boss mod, being able to show you what the bosses are going to be doing. But for trash mobs, you might be wanting something extra, a little bit of an extra help when it comes to noticing dangerous things happening for trash mobs. And this is right now the best type of Weakaura you can have when it comes to preparing yourself, to being aware of dangerous mechanics when it comes to trash mobs. Of course, this is also relevant and available for bosses, right? Every one of these dungeons also has the mechanics of the bosses showing up, like Rezan, Yasma. They are still here, even though the primary use of this is going to be for the trash mob ones, since the bosses do have the support of a boss mod also with their bars and their warnings, but the trash mobs not really. That's the point for today's video when it comes to helping, to giving more tools and more resources to players to get their time in Mythic Plus to be a little bit easier and smoother. Now, as I continue to genocide all these poor seamen, who I'm sure did nothing wrong in their life, but hey, it's content, we are now leaving each other on this Saturday, I believe it is. Yes, Saturday. So we are starting the goodbyes, of course, by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for having contributed and for supporting the growth of the channel. Now, you can still support, of course, completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. And with these pointless things out of the way, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your incoming Christmas celebrations. Thank you guys, of course, for watching. See you guys probably tomorrow. And in the meantime, man, the poor souls who had to do this grind for hours and hours and hours, taking 3 times as much to kill any mob. Ah, why?